Alright, so now that our background is dry, our foreground is dry, our ground is dry, we're going to start to add in more details. So right now, obviously I have these crazy trees from the first time, and so now I want to kind of start to clean it up and add a lot more details to my painting. So obviously my paper is rolling up. Sometimes that happens. It's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some water on my brush, and I'm going to create my tree color. So I'm going to focus on grabbing some greens. And again, I like to work with a lot of different colors. So I like to grab multiple colors of greens. The darker greens, obviously the better. I grab blues. I grab browns, and that'll kind of give me a nice rich dark green color. So what we're going to do first is, again, I'm right-handed, so I like to work from left to right, just kind of protect my work. So I'm just going to start to add in some more trees. And again, these are kind of in the background a little bit, so I'm going to work right over top of what I had originally. And right now, because they are, again, and I like to work back and forth, and I'm kind of just dabbing my brush as I create these trees. So it kind of creates the look of a pine tree without being like completely triangular and perfect and whatnot. So I'm going to add another one in, and this one's going to be a bit taller, about the same height even. And again, I'm just going to kind of go, notice I'm going right over where my other trees were, but I'm overlapping where they're at as well. So if I work reverse, so you can see a little bit more clearly, I'll start to work in one right here. So I just remember that I've got to go. Now, obviously, if I work one right here, right, wouldn't make much sense because then it's going to be shorter. So I'm going to bring one up a little higher this time. And again, you can hopefully see how I just kind of work in a back and forth motion to create this illusion of the pine trees right now. And with watercolor, it's really important to work from back to front. So that's why we like to do this part first. I'm leaving that tree that's in the distance, and again, once I get down to the bottom, I kind of let that area go. So again, I've got to make sure right now that my trees in the background are smaller. My trees in the towards the front that are going to be brighter, right now are a little bit taller. So as I add one right here, same concept. Just going to go back and forth. And again, as I go back and forth, notice I'm leaving some gaps. It's because I want these trees to look like real. I don't want them to look fake. And so if I just try to make it so that they were always the same constantly, then that, again, wouldn't really work for trees, again, in the distance. So I'm kind of running out of my colors. So I'm going to make more. So I'm going to grab a little more water on my brush. Grab the greens I was using. Blue I was using. Some of that brown. And I'm going to let that side dry, and I'm going to work over here. And I'm going to continue to work upside down, just so that way you can see it. So I'm going to add another tree now, kind of right in here. I could have used my smaller round brush, but sometimes for that, it also forces me to get too detailed, which right now I don't need to worry about, because I am just doing some of the background. And again, I want to pull this tree up a little bit higher, I think, so it can be a skinnier guy. I'm going to make this one, I think, a little bit bigger now, too, so I can kind of hide some of that background tree. I'm not a big fan. And I'm going to continue working. The nice thing, again, is because my background trees are there, I can actually leave that space open. So that way I don't have to worry about trying to add a tree in there if I don't want it. That one's going to get a little crazy on me. My brush slipped. And I want to add one final tree right over here along the edge. So that way I can kind of cover that side up some. So again, you can kind of see that, how I've started to add some of those trees in there. So again, it looks like right now that they're kind of sitting right at the top of that hill, which is fine. Again, so if I want to fade them out a little bit now, I can just take my brush. Let's say I want them to be in the distance some, so maybe I just need to kind of come in and just work some water right over top of them, just like I did for my background trees. Just kind of fade them out a little bit more. If these are too dark, turn the paper around a little bit now. And again, you don't have to do this part. This is kind of optional. If you want your trees just to kind of look like they're still in the distance, which they are. I'm not really a big fan of some of this going on over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my small round brush that I have, and I'm going to work in I'm going to put a little bit of water on my brush as well, just to kind of fade this out some. I'm not really a big fan of what's kind of going on back here. So I'm going to work in a new tree that kind of just is redefined by my, it's more in that background space. So it's still there. I'm not changing anything, but I'm just kind of fading that out a little bit. I wasn't too big of a fan of that. So I'm going to work on letting that dry. And then what I'm going to do is, once that's done, I'm going to continue to add more trees.